they definitely know what they want and what they don't want.
Oh yeah.
You will hear a lot of people say, well, why can't we have that like the other communities?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I know that we needed to do something for seniors and for middle school and high school students, not just because I have the capability, I can generate a report, but this is what people have told us. So because
Hi, everybody. I'm Lee Scott. Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee, where we talk about life, leadership, and legacy. I want to help you unleash your capacity and level of leadership. I have a great guest today, but before I introduce her, if you have not done it yet, go and subscribe to Leading with Lee on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. I'm so excited because the guest I have today is somebody that I've gotten to know over the last year. She's an incredible, incredible person. She's a serial entrepreneur. She's the host of the JXN Transplant podcast, and she is also a part of the Change Collective inaugural family for the city of Jackson. Please welcome Dr. Ashlee Kelly. How you doing, Ashlee?
Hi, I'm doing well.
Great, great. I'm so grateful that you said yes to doing this, and I've had a few alum on already this season. You and I talked about before the season started. I said I'm about to bring on some Change Collective folks. But thank you for saying yes to doing this. But we haven't got a chance to talk in a while. So I just want to talk to you about how are things going? How are you doing? What are some of the things that you're working on right now?
Well, things are going really well. I am working on a lot of things. During Change Collective, I was lucky enough to have my project happening as I was kind of building it out through Change Collective. So now I'm in a nonprofit world now, which is very new for me because I am accustomed to contracting with nonprofits, but actually operating a nonprofit is very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, of course, I finished school since
Yeah.
we last.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. Just took me 22 years. It's fine.
Right,
Um,
right, right, right.
yeah, but doing a lot of stuff. So, right now my focus is getting back to the basics of time management, just because I have so much going on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a real thing for
Yeah,
all of us. I mean, as you know, I'm in the middle of a life change.
yeah.
And
I'm so excited for you.
thank you, but it's real. Literally, we were having some conversations before I got on this recording with you, and I'm like, I still got so much to do. It feels like there's so much to do, but at the same time, you've done so much, but you feel like you haven't done enough. And so there's always something. And so it has been an interesting time. One of the reasons why I want to bring you on, Ashlee, is because you're somebody who, in getting to have conversations with you and engage with you, you seem to be having your hands in a lot of things, but you seem to be thinking about this idea of restoration and rebuilding and different things like that. I want to talk to you about that today because it's been something that's been on my mind. Um, what actually got you into doing that kind of work? Like, what brought you to the idea of urban redevelopment and what that looks like, and how to do that in communities?
Yeah, I guess for me, when I think about my life, I've always been an urban planner. Growing up in New Orleans, I don't think it's specific to New Orleans, but I feel like a lot of New Orleanians would relate. Is I really got to know my city. I was
Yeah.
not the individual who was in a specific neighborhood, specific ward, because wards are big in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But I really got to know my city. I love public transportation. I was always at the French Quarters. I was always at any type of, like large scale event that was available. So I got my love of cities from growing up in New Orleans and from my dad as well, because he always has in the streets. So I think it started there. What made me major in urban planning for my master's is because I came from a neighborhood that was, prior to its development, it was actually a landfill. And they
Wow.
decide to build a subdivision for, African Americans to increase the opportunities of home ownership for low middle class African Americans. And they put single family homes, townhomes, a senior center, a school, a community center there. And turns out it was completely contaminated. They didn't remove enough of, what comes along with
Wow.
landfills, and it caused a alarming level of illnesses, diseases,
Yep.
and so that's what first got me interested in it. And from there, I remember I think I might have been in 10th grade in high school, where EPA finally, after decades, say, okay, we believe you guys, let's test the soil. And they tested it, and I just remember people coming, they were in those suits, those protective gear from
Yeah.
head to toe, removing the soil and replacing the soil, and planting trees and bushes and stuff like that. And then Hurricane Katrina hit, and because the water was sitting there too long, they completely, blocked people from moving back to their homes, even though they had paid off their homes and everything.
Wow.
So really, when I got into urban planning, my concentration was environmental planning. So I was mostly concerned with like environmental racism, stuff like that. So yeah, so my roots started in, like I said, loving my city, but also hating my city as well. Because we were in court for decades with the city of New Orleans, with the contractors and everything. I
Yeah.
remember like my grandmother planting gardens, and literally there's like potato chip bag there. And then some
Wow.
people might have like cars in their backyard, stuff like that. And, pretty much everybody from that neighborhood, like I said, it was high incidence of sickness and illnesses as well. There were men and children like being diagnosed with breast cancer. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's what got me started. And I think because of Hurricane Katrina and everything that came along with that, I wasn't really ready to go right back to New Orleans. So I said, well, let me see what I can do in Jackson for a little while.
Yeah.
And then it ended up being a long while because I met my husband in grad school.
Well, it tends to happen that way. Uh, but I think that's a good way. That's a good place for us to continue to have a conversation because one of the things in this work, and remind me, your husband's an architect, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he's an architect by trade. So it's interesting that were have this interest in urban development and urban restoration, all those different things like that, and then you're married to an architect, which makes you all just great. But you made me think about how important it is to really, really think about what restoration looks like, and how it can be such a complicating thing. Talk to me a little bit more about the importance of why restoration is necessary, but how is that tied to being intentional with the restoration process? Because in your own lived experience, you saw a lot of stuff happen. So talk to me a little bit more about that.
Well, for me, I just think it's important for people to have their best quality of life. And a lot of
Yeah,
times that comes with using what's already available, opposed to just like clearing out land to build developments and
right,
displacing people and causing other issues. So for me, it makes sense that if you already have the infrastructure there, you might as well just go ahead and restore it, but ensure you do it uh you replace it with something that's beneficial to the community.
right,
For
right,
me as a planner, staying in Jackson, Mississippi, or wherever I would be, is very important for me to have a few things. It's very important for me to have sidewalks in my community.
right,
We know staying in Jackson, that's majority of Jackson doesn't have sidewalks.
right,
But in having sidewalks, I need somewhere to walk to. I need
right,
amenities. I need a park. I need other things, like I said, that improve my quality of life. So I really feel like every community should look like that. So it's like, what can we do to get it closer to people being able to live those type of lives? What can we do to have employers in communities, or healthcare or health services in communities, or grocery stores? We know that's a big thing as well, that a lot of people live in deserts. And if you already don't have reliable public transportation and you don't have a vehicle, like how does that even work, So for me, it's really important, and I know it's reaching, it's so hard to do, if your community isn't already set up that way, it's very
right.
hard. to fund the capital for it, but I really believe that everybody should have what they need within their communities. Not only should they not have to travel to other cities, they really shouldn't have to travel too far out of their community. Whenever I'm home, and my mom needs something, I'm like, oh yeah, we can just go to like Metairie or Kenner. And she's like, I'm not giving those people my money. So I was raised in a way where when I was growing up pre-Katrina, you had everything you needed within your community. And I just believe that's important. So like I said, if the infrastructure already exists there, why are we, won't we use it for something that will benefit the community?
I mean, you're absolutely right, Ashley. Because one of the things that I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. I think about a lot as someone who grew up in South Jackson, how there are pockets of this part of our city that literally, if someone was to literally invest in that area, it would have such a ripple effect on the well-being, the economic transformation of the community, the people's ability to have access to things. Because what I've come to learn and realize, I mean, I deal with this every day. Literally, I have to drive across town to do anything in Jackson.
Yeah.
It seems like the South is almost completely cut off from the rest of the city. All the activities downtown or out north. And so you got this interstate running through the middle of our city that cuts the city in half. And so it creates this issue where, hey, nothing is happening out south because everybody outside, they got to go north to do anything. And so you're getting at something that I think that people have to think strategically about. And there's possibility. As you were sharing, it made me think about the fact my brother currently lives in Houston. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, I know it.
oh,
Because so my husband was originally from Houston. So yeah, I already know driving for 40 minutes to an hour within the same city.
right, right, right. But they do. But I will say the interesting reality, though, in some ways, the way parts of that city is set up, it's my brother really doesn't have to drive too far to go to a grocery store. He ain't gotta drive that far to go to a gas station. He does not have to go very far to go to a movie theater or something like that, or find some activities at least close in his neighborhood. Now he want to really like get out and do something. He got to drive that 40 minutes to go downtown,
Right.
or go to the planetarium or all this kind of stuff. But for the most part, there is some efforts being done in their city where communities are building out certain things. And that really leads to my next question. And I think you already have started talking about it. What are your thoughts about inclusive economic development?
Well,
And
so I guess the hard part about comparing, like Houston to a place like Jackson is because it's a numbers game.
right, right, right,
People are going to locate things there because they have the population to support it.
right.
And they also have the diversity to support it as well. Whereas we know here, regardless of if people want to discuss it or not, you know, the population of the state of Mississippi is probably equivalent to the city of Houston, and it's very much so black and white, which impacts us here.
Yeah,
Um, so like that's the biggest thing I think when it comes to inclusive economic or community development. It requires you to really get to know the people, get buy-in from the people, and let them work with you in partnership on what they want to see in the community.
yeah,
So that game may not always be a game where you financially benefit from it,
yeah,
as developers and stuff like that.
absolutely.
That's the difference in it, and Jackson tends to be particularly challenging because we have so many issues here. Like when you think about in reality, would you want to move your Trader Joe's here if you're not sure they're going to have water? You know what I'm saying? Or would you want to move whatever business here when there's competing cities all around Jackson offering incentives that we just can't? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So that makes it very challenging. But I guess the benefit of that is also being able to do community economic development at a smaller scale. And you have the diversity as far as, developers, planners, architects. We're able to do that here, and I'm not sure if it would be welcome or appreciated in our neighboring cities.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it will be reflective of the communities that it come from. You know, just even in that, I think there's such wisdom, right? And such insight. Because as you know, human capital is a huge thing for communities. And one of the things that we tend to have a lot of conversations about in our area is the fact that because so many young people from our state are feeling like, hey, I can't do a whole lot here. I'm trying to this, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to build, I'm trying to do this. And they have this view of perspective. I I, I want to get your thoughts about this, but one of the things that's always been on my mind is like everybody's running to Texas or everybody's running to everywhere else, but it's like it might be cheaper for you to start what you're doing here actually. It actually might be economically beneficial for the long term. Like we can be so short term in our view of this that we're thinking about transformation as, hey, I'm just trying to, get this quick buck. I want to make six figures right now and don't realize, hey, you might be making millions if you actually was the first one there.
Yeah.
I even see it in my work too when I'm talking to students, how literally these kids come into my office and they're like, oh yeah, I'm interested in agricultural engineering. And I'm like, that we don't see a lot of agricultural engineering, particularly in Mississippi, but there's an opportunity for it, right?
Right.
There's an opportunity to marry some of those things that people are doing.
Yeah, and I guess I can see both sides of it because once again, quality of life is important and we only get one life. So
Absolutely.
sometimes, and this is a conversation my husband, we've been together for about 14 years, right? And this is a conversation we've been having monthly for the last 14 years
It's
because,
real.
there's a big side of me who would like to be somewhere where everything already exists and I don't have to be responsible for creating it. So I very much so understand people just wanting to go somewhere where the housing infrastructure
Right.
exists, where the good schools exist, where you have, like you said, your brother has everything in the community. But also to your point, here is a place where, it's easy to start up. Now, capital may not be easy to come by. That's the challenging thing. And that
Yeah.
might happen in the larger cities, but it's easy to get things done. The reality is I'm not sure if I will be able to have my own architecture firm if we were in New Orleans or in Houston. My husband is licensed in Texas, and a lot of people have been saying, "Hey, come here, come to Texas, come to Atlanta." And we're like, "Oh man, we're gonna get real jobs there because we spent so much time building our companies here. It would take work to rebuild companies in major cities. And then here, honestly, to have a PhD or to have my husband be a licensed architect, that kind of helps our business
Yeah.
because people want to work with Black architects. They want to work with a Black couple. So, whereas if you go to Houston, Atlanta, or DC, you don't really stand out because everybody,
Everybody,
everybody.
yes. Everybody you know about 15 other
Right, right. I mean,
architects.
because I had a time where I tried to relocate to DC and I was like, man, I have all this work experience as a young
Right.
professional. I was a PhD student, and it was like, yeah, so are we, and all of us have second jobs. So,
I mean, it's real.
right. So, like, that's the hard part of it. I think what happens a lot here is we do see people leave, but we also see them return.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either they return, I see mostly when it comes to families, or they return where they say, hey, I've gained enough knowledge. Now I'm gonna come back and see how I can contribute to my community.
Yeah.
So that's one good thing I do see. But also Jackson is a very interesting place because it's a place of transplants. For the
Yeah.
longest time, I did not know anybody who was actually originally from Jackson, Mississippi, because all of my friends were transplants from not only across the nation, but like from all over the world.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. That gives interesting perspective to the city as well. And you'll find a lot of times those people are more excited
Commit.
and confident about the future of Jackson more so than
Yeah.
people who grew up here, which I can understand why they feel that way, especially if you spent your whole life here. But
Yeah.
like I said, I can understand both sides of it.
Yeah. And I get that. And I'm an example of somebody that did that. Born and raised here in the city, and then I'm lived in Oklahoma for 7.5, 8 years because I was going to school there, and then I moved back. And those experiences, I was saying to myself, "Oh, this stuff can happen here. Like
Mhm.
we don't have to do exactly the same thing, but we can create our own model for how we can be effective in our transformation and change here." But it goes back to your point that you made earlier. You got it. We have to get people to buy in. I,
Yeah.
I, 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 I and I think
And the
about this.
buying part is hard. The
Oh,
buying part is hard
absolutely.
because, and I always say sometimes it's frustrating, but it's definitely understandable because when you have been lied to so many times, when there's been no investment in your area,
Yep.
when you're doing the best you can and you're in survival mode, you really
Yep.
don't have the capacity to figure out how to get involved into something. And when people do, I think that should be commended because you're
Yep.
trying to survive, you're trying to pay bills, and then you're also involved in making the community better for yourself and future
Oh,
generations.
yep. Oh, yep. Absolutely. I mean, that's such wisdom, Ashley, because we got to give people credit for just trying. Like
Right.
it, what, and it bugs me a little bit because we think that people don't want to live better, or
Yeah, that's
people don't want to feel better, or people don't want to have more opportunities. And so when they try, because of hopelessness and all these things that are happening, we literally put them in situations where they're like, bro, if I keep trying, I mean, what do you expect me to do? I mean, and that's
yeah,
and that's a lot. And so I think there's a lot of insight in what you were saying. And I really think that as people listen to this or watch this, I hope that they can really pull out that, like, you know what, there is an opportunity here. There is hope here, especially in our city. Listen, I know you stayed on purpose. I know you love your husband, so you stayed.
it's definitely his fault.
For me, I love our city, so I came back because I do believe in the possibilities of our city. And I do believe, yeah, I know we got now that we have that hashtag. Yeah, we are a city with soul. There is a lot of richness to our history, and there's a lot of possibilities. But we got to be willing to play the long game, especially on that, and do the work. But I'm gonna take a pause right here, and we'll be right back after this message. Want to promote your business, products, or services? Email me at scottconsultations@gmail.com. I would love to push forward the banner of what you're trying to accomplish, whether it is a product, whether it's your services or your business. I would love to work with you and be an advocate for what you're doing in your respective spaces. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you. And we are back. I'm so grateful to have Ashlee on. It's been such a great conversation about how we can restore our communities and do the great things that we need to do. But I kind of want to shift the conversation a little bit, Ashlee, because you stated earlier that you're now in the nonprofit world, and you're now I see that you got involved in the Yellow House. Talk to me about how you got involved in the project, and just kind of share what is the goal of the Yellow House in our
Okay.
community.
All right, kids, story time. So when I was a student in a master's program, I had to do some volunteer work for Habitat for Humanity. And they have a lot of housing in Mid City. I'm not sure of the origins of that, if it's just in general. I know there's a lot of people from Hurricane Katrina relocated to that neighborhood. So I had to do surveys and we worked out of the Yellow House and we walked the
Wow.
neighborhood to just get the perception of, Habitat homes and what they think of it or whatever, right? So then maybe a year later, I meet my husband in grad school because I think when he got in, I was on my way out, right? So it was
Wow.
like this lower classman. I don't know who this person is. But anyway, once we got to know each other, we're dating. He invited me to a family reunion. We're at the Yellow House.
Wow.
So it was a house that was kind of an eyesore in the community, and his daddy got the idea that let's make this a community center. So it was converted into one in the 90s. When his dad got sick and wasn't able to do as much work, Northminster took over. And they were there maybe, I know it was more than a decade, not quite 15 years, and they were offering different programming and services there. The pastor retired, I think last year, so the conversation came up, what are we going to do with it? So prior to my father-in-law's death, I think I might have been pregnant or just had my kid, he was like, hey, I want y'all to take over this community center. And we were like, hey, we don't have the capacity to do that. We're very busy. I'm in school and working full time. My husband was working full time. I think he was studying to become a licensed architect, maybe back then. So we were like, nah, that's not gonna work, right? So, after his death, we ever actually saw paperwork where he was starting the process of getting everything together and putting it in my husband's name, right?
Wow.
So yes, so I guess he was like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, so they're gonna be here to take this over. So then, when Norton Minster talked about what to do, with the Yellow House or Yellow Church, as they call it, they called us in and we kind of had a conversation, maybe about a year about it. We did a presentation with their board and we officially took it over in January.
Wow.
So, very new, interesting process. Not gonna lie to you, never wanted to do nonprofit work. Never.
Oh, it's not for the weak.
I have the skill set for it because, like I said, I've done contracting with nonprofits, and actually, my concentration for my PhD is program management, specifically for nonprofits and government
Wow.
agencies. But
Wow.
after my time with the government, I was like, nope. And then I was like, nonprofit, definitely not. So it's so interesting. I tell people we were always going to be there because it was
Yeah.
just too many connections to the Yellow House. So what we are thinking is we want to bring it back to its traditional use, right? We want it to be a community center slash rec center. So we're going to do a pilot program where we have it open, starting out once a week, and it's going to be very informal. Come hang out, play games, get some water or coffee, get some cookies I warmed up from Nestle that popped in the oven. And we want to kind of make it like a third place. And the third
Yeah.
place is the place after your home and your workplace where you can hang out, which existed in previous generations before we start commuting for work. So now people don't have
Yeah.
time to really hang out in third places. So that's what we want to use it for. People have also started renting out the Yellow House for community events. Of course, a community center is going to be way cheaper than using like a venue, particularly for the people within the community. So we
Yeah.
just want to offer another space where people, like I said, you can hang out. Eventually, we're going to add like Wi-Fi and TVs and get computers, and we just want a place for a space for people to hang out, particularly for our Asian community, which Mid City, I think half of it is like 40 and older.
Yeah.
Um, and our teenagers, our tweens and teens, they have nothing to do within the community.
Yeah.
Operation Shoestring does a excellent job for families and children, but the gap is with middle school, high school students. So we want to figure out how we can kind of get them in as well.
Wow, that's so great. One of the things that I want to get at that you were talking about is that you all's focus on trying to empower the community is essential. And I think people have to understand that without community development, these communities are just going to die. And
Mhm.
you know what often happens, and we don't realize this is the real thing that happens in our city. I don't think people realize it, how often it's a reality. We see a age gap in our city. We have there's a lot of seniors in our city, and then there's a lot of kids in our city. And
Mhm.
it seems like we're not necessarily creating policies that actually address them. Like, I always think about we should have honestly, our approach should be family policy in Jackson. Because it's affecting these families. These multi-generational families are often being affected by these things. And so, you know, I think it's awesome, Ashlee, that you all are taking this effort to say, hey, we're going to do something that's going to benefit these people, whether people come along and be a part of it. No, we're going to do what we need to do to ensure that these people in this particular community get access to stuff that they probably don't get access to.
Right. And one thing I will say about Mid City after working there for the last several months is they definitely know what they want and what they don't want.
Oh, yeah.
And you will hear a lot of people say, well, why can't we have that like the other communities?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I know that we needed to do something for seniors and for middle school and high school students, not just because I have the capability, I can generate a report, but this is what people have told us. So because they have told us this, we have to prioritize that, not what we think should be a priority, which is hard for a lot of urban planners or architects or developers. But to me, it gives my brain a break. I don't have to figure out anything
Yeah.
because they have told us what they wanted in their community.
Oh, I mean that's big. I want to kind of move the conversation along a little bit, because I mean we could stay on that conversation a while. I mean that's I'll just make a quick comment that is one of those things where it's like we don't give people enough credit for knowing what they want. I don't know why we don't do that, but people know what they want. If they're not coming to listen or receive your product, it's because they don't want it. It's not that you did anything wrong. It's they just don't want it.
Right.
And so you're that's something huge, Ashlee, and I think that that's so great that you all are doing that. Talk to me a little bit more about just from a resource perspective. Like you talked about this third way. Kind of talk a little bit more about that. Does it feel like a thing of transition? Does it feel like a space for an oasis? Like why do you think that is so important for communities to have?
I mean, this is something that communities historically had. They usually had a buffer between, getting off from work and just preparing for nighttime, right? And
Yeah.
like I said, the history of really like interstate systems splitting through viable communities, or now I have an interstate system so I can commute somewhere else or commute further. We're spending so much time in our car, we don't have time for community. And really, for a lot of us, the last time we had communities when we were in school. Because when you live
Mm-hmm.
on a college campus, you walk to classes, you can walk to your friend dorm room, you can walk to get something to eat, and that just really doesn't exist anymore. So we're bringing it back to, having a community space, but also, like I said, there's a lot of people who have a lot of, like seniors tend to have a lot of downtime,
Yep.
or children tend to have now, I didn't have downtime growing up, but these kids do. If I was in extracurricular activities, I was at church. So I
Yep.
had zero
Same.
downtime, but they do. So it's now let's figure out how we can have them do something constructive with their time, expose them to something different with their time. And like I said, that is going to help improve the quality of life because you're not going to be in trouble somewhere else down the street if you're going to be hanging with us.
Hello. I mean, that's absolutely true. Well, we've had such a great conversation, and listen, I'm excited to bring you back on because there's some other stuff we can talk about, and you and I are gonna talk about some other stuff anyway.
Yes, we are.
But I got three more questions for you, and then I'm gonna get you
Okay.
out of here. And I kind of sent you this question before, but what are some of the things you're reading or listening to, or how are you investing in your own personal development? I think every person needs to be investing in themselves. So what are some of the things that you're doing to invest back into Ash?
This was such a good question because I'm not going to answer it the way you want me to.
Oh man, okay.
And the reason why, as you know, I just got my PhD.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, for somebody who entered their career so early, I was a person that said, nobody can tell me I'm not experienced. I'm going to take every class, every certification. When I had my daughter, I was active on 12 boards. Okay. That is
Whoa.
ridiculous. So right now, I'm in a season of application. I don't want, it's so many things that I want to do, but I'm like, no, I need to take a break. So I am reading now recreationally. I'm not reading to learn or to build my character
That's great.
anymore. I'm watching TV, I'm listening to music, listening to podcasts. So I think it's very important, particularly for Black women who
Hmm.
we have to be perfect. And at some point, I was like, I am exhausted. I'm not doing it anymore. So right now, it's like I said, it's applying what I learned through Change Collective. It's applying what I've learned through schools, applying what I've learned through other things. Like even during the time I was preparing for my comprehensive exam, so I can get to the dissertation stage, I was in Millsap's Business Advantage program for professionals. I'm studying for this comprehensive exam. I'm also working full time, and I'm at Millsaps 2 to 3 nights a week getting a certification. Okay. So I was definitely a person who, like, you will never tell me I'm not qualified because I will have
Yeah.
every single skill available. So right now, I am not doing anything to build any leadership or professional skills, I say, let's try to do something challenging, which is apply. And that is very challenging for me because I never get the opportunity to. Once I finish one thing, I go to another thing. So I'm in a season of blowing the dust off all of my books in my binders and applying it because I've learned a lot of great things, but I've never had a chance to actually apply what I've learned.
Yeah, I think and that's exciting, because now it's not theoretical.
Yeah. And now
Now,
I can't use the excuse of being too busy.
yep, absolutely, absolutely. My
So
next
don't
last
read
question.
anything, kids. Don't read anything. I'm just kidding.
I, I don't know about that, but,
Kidding.
right, right, but
I've done my time, so some of y'all have to do your time, you know.
yeah, right. Keep learning something. You should be learning something, right?
Yeah.
It, but I think that that's so great, and now you get to apply all this great information and knowledge that you have. My next last question is, how are you paying it forward? This question was asked to me. I love asking people this question because, as I share all the time, there's a woman that when worked for a credit union for like 3 years, and one of the vice presidents of that organization, I met her. She was the vice president of human resources at the time, and was such a wonderful woman to me. And she found out I was trying to finish my undergraduate degree, and I was having some issues with finding the money to finish it and stuff like that. And this woman literally wrote me the check and paid for my last class for college. I mean, it was an absolute blessing to me. Like,
Yeah.
but she always said this to me. She said, "Lee, I did this for you not because I did this for you because somebody did it for me."
Yeah.
And so she said to me, "Lee, I want you to always keep in mind, how are you paying it forward?" So you're a leader. You're somebody that makes a difference. How are you paying it forward into other people's lives and making an indelible mark on them?
Well, when I hear people have similar interests or something, I know someone or something about, I'm going to immediately insert myself into it. I mean, we had a conversation offline. I'm like, hey, you do this, let me know. I will literally help you. And then during that same time, I'm texting someone, I'm like, I'm new to nonprofit. You're interested in starting a nonprofit. Let's work together to
Yep.
figure out how you can learn any skills, maybe avoid some mistakes. Even through Change Collective, we had times of like,
Oh
what do you
yeah.
do? What do you do? What do you do? How can we help? So for me, I guess I'm big on paying it forward and helping people because I wish that would have happened for me. Like I said, I entered my career at a very young age and I thought it would be an experience where people are like, oh, look at the young person, let me adopt her. And I was the polar opposite. So for me,
Oh
it's
yeah.
always like,
That's
what would have
real.
been helpful? Yeah, I'm like, what would have been helpful for me? And if I hear of somebody doing something, and I tell people I'm busy, I do a lot of things, I will always make time to help other people do it. So don't say, oh, I want to bother you because you're busy. I'm like, hey, always contact me because if I don't have time today, maybe I have time tomorrow, or
Right.
maybe I have time next week. So I guess I look for always helping the other Ashleys out there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and ultimately, which is very interesting, I never thought I wanted to be a professor. I was like, do y'all have any adjunct
You
positions?
look, you'll be a great one.
But I do want to be one. I love my institution where I've gotten all of my degrees from. However, I had so many professors who, like their work experience was getting degrees. I think it's
Yeah.
very important to also help people who want to be practitioners and work in the field. And when I got a PhD program, I'm like, cool, I got in this program. I'm about to quit my job. And the chair at that time told me, girl, don't quit that job because it's hard for people to get jobs.
Yeah.
And I do want to be able to have that conversation with other people, what to look out for, how you can get your foot in the door,
Yeah.
how you can thrive in a career. And I have a lot of friends and family who come to me for advice. I'm somehow the designated resume writer within the family. So, and among my friends, and then they tell other people, and probably should be charging people because I do
Oh
so many.
yeah, that's a whole business.
It is a whole business, but I don't want to do it as a business. I probably will start hating it if I monetize it, which is something else I'm trying to stop doing is monetizing every single thing.
Well, yeah,
But
yeah,
I like I said, I just want to help people because I've been helped or is a situation where I wish I would have been helped.
yeah,
So I always want to make sure that I pay it forward, for people.
yeah. That's so good. And I'm excited for your adjunctship. I don't know if that's
Well,
even a word.
I inquired about it at Jackson. They don't have them like they used to. They have like full professor gigs. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm ready for that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I mean, because you want to be able to still be in the field doing some stuff,
right, right.
and be
But
able to,
also to be in the field and teach too,
right.
it's interesting. It will be interesting for students who want to transition into the field, get into the field. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I
Who know?
definitely want to be a part of the process.
Who knows? I mean, you never know what could happen. I mean, life is a interesting
Right, right. You never know. And I'm
story.
open to it too as well. And even, to my master's program, I even pitched how they have a university success and a career success. Because I went into my career thinking things one way, and it was the polar opposite, and it hurt my little feelings
Yep.
in my
Yep.
early 20s.
Yep.
So we definitely have to do a better job of preparing our kids or our students, um, especially when people come from a background where they have no connections. There
Yep.
is no relationship, there is no nepotism. They don't know what that means. They
Uh-huh.
don't know what networking means. So we
Yep.
definitely want to make sure that I love Jackson State. I love HBCUs, and I think we have to do a better job at ensuring that the future generation can at least pay their student loans.
Oh yeah, come on now. I mean, and you know, in a way, I get to do that every day.
Yeah,
Me being a counselor at Get to College, I literally get to have conversations with these kids about, hey, I know we talking about, doing your FAFSA, but here's what I wish I knew when I was your age.
right.
I
And
lit
listen, another thing you want to do is, and somehow you have to wrap me into that too, to talk to students, is because now that I have a PhD, I can tell people I was a failing student most of my life. And when you are a failing student, you
mm,
might think that you have limitations. Your family might think you have limitations. And at my graduation dinner, I had to thank my parents and grandparents for never telling me, although I brought failing grades home majority of my life. And even when I got into the master's program at
wow.
Jackson State, the chair was like, hey, your GPA is trash. He said, I'm going to let you in, but if you don't make a 4.0 in this semester, I will not let you, fully admit you to the program. I made a 4.0 and I graduated highest GPA. But when I applied for that program, I had a 2.4 GPA. Like I said,
Wow.
absolute trash. So it's important for people to, people look at me and be like, hey, she must have been really smart. She loves learning and stuff like that. And they will not understand I was the polar opposite. And it really was Hurricane Katrina that made me kind of take my education
Yeah.
seriously. Cause I was like, oh, I don't have a safety net anymore.
Yeah.
I got to
Yeah.
figure out how to take care of myself and build a career and stuff. But I think it's important for them, even my husband. My husband is a licensed architect. There's a lot of architects around Jackson who are not licensed. It's hard to do. And he was a film student too.
Hey,
And he's an architect with a master's degree. So it's important for people to see people like us and hear our story too, because the assumption is because you go to college or
right.
because you have advanced degrees that
Right.
you're smart. And we had to learn how to study and do the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, you're absolutely right. Now, here's my last question for you, Ashley.
okay.
Because I've enjoyed this conversation with you,
Yeah.
and I think people are going to be so impacted by this. I always ask this question to everybody, and you give me your honest answer. What
Okay.
song will you use to describe yourself and why?
I am picking Jill Scott's Golden because it's what I aspire to get up and do. You remember the video? She's just
Oh,
like
oh
riding a
yes.
bike, just happy. And life doesn't always, afford us that opportunity to look at it. But honestly, waking up and especially having a life that I've created, I mean, it is a golden situation. Even when things suck, it's like I tell my daughter, I was like, every second is different, every minute is different. You can feel down. Let's not sit in it because next day is an opportunity to do something else. So golden would be like a good classic that I immediately feel really good about. And I'm like, man, I still don't think I'm living up to her level of golden in the song. But
She's in a good
that's my
spot.
intention to every morning that I wake up to, right? So
Well, Dr. Ashlee Kelly, I appreciate you and thank you for coming on, my friend.
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. If you have not done it yet, subscribe on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. If you want to get more information and connect with me, visit me at www.leeascott.com or follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Lee A. Scott II or Lee A. Scott II. So, thank you for watching, much love, and let's get started.